Joining us in studio is Mike Robbins. For those of you who might not know, Mike is an author, was a Stanford Cardinal, Kansas City Royal, and it's quite a talk that we're going to have about his new book, Focus on the Good Stuff. Don't worry, Golden Bears, he was a baseball player, not a football player, but I'll still say, go Bears. Mike, it really is good to have you in the studio. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Why don't you tell our listeners over the 9 Bay Area counties a little bit about you?
Well, I grew up right here in the Bay Area, right in Oakland.
Okay.
Went to Skyline High School.
Mm-hmm.
Actually got drafted by the New York Yankees out of Skyline, but chose
Wow.
instead to play baseball at Stanford, as you mentioned. Although I did grow up a Bears fan, so I was sort of a little bit, conflicted there. But yeah, then I was at Stanford, got, my goal my whole life was to play in the major leagues. Wanted to play for the A's. Ended up getting drafted by the Kansas City Royals. Signed with the Royals and went into the minor leagues and was doing well. I was a left-handed pitcher, working my way up in the organization. And unfortunately, my third season in the minor leagues, I blew out my pitching arm at the age of 23. So that sort of, put me at a little bit of a crossroads in life. I had to try to figure out what I was going to do next. I moved back here to the Bay Area, got a job working in the internet world. But within a couple of years, I had gotten really involved in personal, professional development and decided that I wanted to start speaking and coaching people. And so 7 years ago, I started my business as a motivational speaker and a life coach. And for the last 7 years, I've been working with corporations, with schools, nonprofit groups all over the country, talking about focusing on the good stuff and the power of appreciation. So,
Wow. What from those experiences drove you to write the book?
well, I think really it was, when I hurt my arm, Timothy, the biggest realization that I had was that I hadn't appreciated what I was doing. I'd been so busy being hard on myself, being competitive, trying to get to the next level, be better than the next guy, make it, that all of a sudden I realized, oops, I think I forgot to enjoy it. And so it was that, along with some other experiences that I had. My dad and my mom split up when I was a kid, and my dad suffered from really severe bipolar disorder, so I watched my dad be very depressed a lot of his life, and I struggled with some of my own demons. And what I realized through a lot of the personal growth work that I did, that it was really about, our choice, our thoughts, our feelings, what do we do with whatever happens to us. So those things kind of just led me down a path of my own growth, and in the process of doing that, I've always been somebody that once I learn something, I want to tell others about it or teach people about it. So that's how I kind of started speaking.
Well, it's interesting you mention the negative and the need for choice, because today's media, in my humble opinion, is heavily focused on the negative.
Oh, yeah.
Why is that, in your opinion?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. I think if you look at it, first of all, for whatever reason, it sells. Right? People want to hear
curiosity.
People want to hear about Michael Vick, or they want to hear about O.J. Simpson, or they want to hear about, these celebrities that do crazy things, or, you turn on, especially the local news, and it's all about, the accidents and the traumas and the dramas. I don't know what that is, to be honest with you. I think at some personal level, if you think about it, we take it out of just the media perspective, we obsess about negative stuff within ourselves. People gossip with each other, we talk about what's wrong, we talk about the politicians we don't so there's just a lot of focus on negativity, and I think a lot of it's unconscious, that we're just sort of swimming around in this kind of dirty water, and we don't realize there's another option.
Listeners, I have to agree with Mike. Sometimes I think it's easier when we just say negative things. It's easy to say, oh, the weather's bad today, or, my God, I had a rough night sleeping and my back is killing me. I think anyone can find a complaint. The real trick is to find something positive to say, or if there is something to complain about, the real trick is to find a solution before you mouth the complaint. One complaint, 2 solutions. It's what I tell my staff. I have to agree with you, though. The negative certainly is pervasive in our culture, and I'd have to say it's also pervasive in ourselves. We focus very much on being hard on ourselves, not appreciating what we have done.
Well, and if you think about it, Timothy, a lot of us, myself included, if we, trained in our culture, educationally, in sports, in business, there's a lot of, I think people well-intentioned, parents and teachers tell, you don't want to get cocky, you want to focus on areas where maybe you're not as good to improve. And I think that's actually good advice. The problem is, I think we take it the wrong way. And what happens is, in our desire to be successful, to be happy, we ultimately end up obsessing about all these perceived weaknesses, and we put what I call a disproportionate amount of attention and energy on that negative stuff. So it's not about avoiding that. We all have areas where we can improve in things that we're probably not so good at. But at the same time, most people I talk to, the good outweighs the bad at least 10 to 1, if not more. And the thing is that we mostly take for granted all the stuff that we're personally good at, or the good things in our lives. And in the process of doing that, we miss out on all the wonderful stuff around us.
Well, you'll find some simple exercises in Mike's book. Again, to appreciate yourself and the work you've done really does take a fair amount of effort. Mike, as a coach, has been for 7 years. This is not a quick fix thing. But one thing, Mike, that I really enjoyed reading in your book was the idea of the sunshine folder. A simple exercise when you're feeling down. Tell our readers what the sunshine folder is, and maybe just another quick idea, something to bring yourself up, because we all have attacks of the negatives.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll actually tell you a funny story about how that idea came to me.
Okay.
About 4 or 5 years ago, I got a meeting with New York Life. And this was a big deal for me, right? And you can relate to this and appreciate, it's a big company. I do a lot of speaking in the corporate world. Got a meeting with a vice president of the, Pacific Zone. It was like an important guy, right?
Yeah.
So I get ready for this meeting. I, put my suit and tie on, which I very rarely do. Go sit in the meeting, and I get in there, and the guy is like just motivational quote man. He's sort of bouncing off the walls. He's giving me all these quotes, and he's really great. He's funny, right? And have you read this one? Have you read that one? He's asking me about books, and then all of a sudden he looks at me very seriously in the eye, and he says, Mike, do you know what's made me successful in the insurance and financial services industry for 25 years? And I said, no. And he paused, and then he reached down into his desk, and he pulled out this big folder and plopped it on the table, and he said, my sunshine file. Oh. And I had to, I almost laughed, right? I'm trying to keep a straight face, like,
you are my sunshine.
Yeah, but and this guy, who I was expecting to be relatively conservative business guy, and then I said, well, could you tell me what that is? And what he said, here's 25 years worth of attaboys, way to goes, good job. Every card, note, anything I ever got went in the file. And so basically what this is, as people can probably figure out, and some people call it other things, is it's a folder, a file you put in your desk, somewhere close to you, and you put all kinds of cards and things that people say about you positively. Because when you are having a rough day, when that voice that I call the gremlin, that little monster in our head, starts going at us, we need to be able to pull the sunshine file out and read through it. So it's a very simple thing. Another simple practice that people can use is, what I call a gratitude or an appreciation journal, which is similar. And the idea is that on a daily basis, on a regular basis, you just write down things you're grateful for. You appreciate that good stuff that's happening in your life, in the world. The thing about it is, what I believe, Timothy, is we've got to, just like we bathe mostly every day, hopefully, right? Yeah. Just like we brush our teeth, just like we try to eat good food or take care of our bodies, or the certain things that we do on a regular basis, appreciating ourselves, appreciating our lives. My passion, why I wrote Focus on the Good Stuff, is that so people start doing that on a regular basis, because it's that important.
Well, listeners, it sounds simple, but to get a new habit, as Covey says, you need at least 21 days of practice. And I can tell you, writing a journal is something I've been doing probably for well over 10 years now. And it is a habit. Yeah. And it's something that if you stop doing, once it becomes a habit, you sorely miss it, I tell you. So definitely, it is worth doing. I recommend checking out the book, and more than just reading it, or don't just buy it and set it aside. Certainly read it, but by the same token, really commit to the exercises that are in there. The sunshine folder is not something tremendously difficult in my mind, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. What we're going to drill into now are the actual lessons that Mike recommends in his book. Before we go into those, Mike, though, you keep mentioning appreciation. Why is appreciation so important? What stats do you have on that?
Well, if we take it in the business context, the Department of Labor says that of people in America who leave their jobs, 64% of them leave because they don't feel appreciated. Okay. So it's literally the #1 retention or morale issue for anyone listening who either has a job or, other people report to them and they own a business. If people don't feel appreciated, and we can all relate to this in our own lives, especially in any work that we've done, and even those of us who have our own businesses like myself, if you don't feel appreciated by the people you work with, you're not going to want to work there.
That's true.
And the other stat that I think is interesting on that, Gallup says that of people they polled in America, almost 70% of people say they receive no praise or recognition in the workplace.
Wow.
So, those are big on the work front. And if you think on a personal level, while I don't have specific statistics about this, the divorce rate in America, I think, is over 50% now. People sort of throw that one around. Yeah. And if you think about, we all think about relationships that we've had in the past, whether they were marriages or just, dating relationships when we were younger. Almost every love relationship that ends is because one or both people don't feel appreciated. So when I'm working with couples or with individuals about talking to them about their relationships, fundamentally it's about, look, if you want to have a great relationship, you got to appreciate your wife or your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your partner, because when we don't feel that way, I know in my relationship with my wife Michelle, and we love each other completely, and whenever she gets upset with me or vice versa, there's usually some lack of appreciation that's being experienced, and once we put that in, things are much better.
Again, Mike, I appreciate the time today and look forward to talking with you next week.
Thanks a lot.